They say power makes you untouchable, but what happens when the woman you caged learns she was never meant to survive? Elara Vance thought she married a monster. She was wrong. She married a man who traded her like currency, built walls from her father's blood money, and smiled while the world burned around them. But when she found the ledger, the one secret that could end empires, everything changed. This is the story of a woman who stopped being prey. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. Hit that like button and let's begin. The porcelain cup hit the marble floor at 11:47 p.m. Elara didn't remember dropping it. She stood in the dining hall, a room built to intimidate, all black granite and vaulted ceilings that swallowed sound, and watched the shards scatter across stone like white teeth. Her hands were shaking. She pressed them against her thighs, nails digging into the fabric of her dress, trying to stop the tremor before he noticed. Lucien Moretti noticed everything. He sat across from her, 15 feet of polished table between them, a glass of whiskey in one hand. His suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, no tie. He looked like a man who just returned from a business dinner, not a man who just told his wife their marriage was a lie. Rain tapped against the windows, the kind of rain that didn't stop, just kept coming in waves, relentless. "You're not going to say anything?" Lucian's voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that lived in the center of violence. Elara's throat felt like sandpaper. "What do you want me to say?" "I don't know. Scream. Throw something. Break down." He took a sip of whiskey, eyes never leaving her face. That's what people do when their world falls apart, isn't it? She wanted to laugh. The absurdity of it. Standing here, 24 years old, married 11 months to a man who ruled half of Europe's underworld, and he was asking her to perform grief for him. "I loved you," she said. The words came out flat, empty, past tense. "I know." "Did you ever—" She stopped, swallowed, started again. "Did you ever feel anything?" Lucian set the glass down. The sound echoed. "Your father needed protection. I needed legitimacy. You were the price we agreed on." There it was. No dressing it up. No mercy. Elara felt something crack inside her chest. Not her heart, that had already shattered weeks ago when she'd started noticing the distance, the coldness, the way he looked at her like she was furniture. This was something else. Something that felt like the last thread holding her to the person she used to be. "So that's it," she said. 11 months. All of it. A transaction. The word hung in the air like smoke. She nodded slowly. Once. Twice. Then she turned and walked out. Lucien didn't follow. Tact. Elara made it to the east wing before her knees buckled. She caught herself against the wall, one hand pressed to the cold plaster, breathing hard. The hallway was dark except for the thin sliver of light coming from under the kitchen door at the far end. She should have seen it coming. All the signs were there, the separate bedrooms after the 3rd month, the business trips that lasted weeks. The way he touched her like obligation, mechanical and distant. She'd told herself it was stress, the weight of his empire, the enemies circling. She'd been so stupidly hopeful. The kitchen door opened. Magdalena stepped out, her face creased with worry. The old woman had been with the Moretti family for 40 years, long before Lucian's father died, long before the empire became what it was now. She looked at Elara the way a mother might, if Elara had ever known what that felt like. "Piccola," Magdalena whispered. "You should not be here, not tonight." "Where should I be?" Elara's voice cracked. She hated the sound of it, weak, broken. Magdalena glanced down the hallway, then pulled Elara into the kitchen, shutting the door behind them. The room smelled like rosemary and old bread. A single lamp burned on the counter. "Listen to me." Magdalena gripped Elara's shoulders, her fingers strong despite her age. "There is something I must tell you, something your father made me swear never to speak of." Elara stared at her. "My father's dead." "Yes. And before he died, he gave me a key." Magdalena reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a small brass key tarnished with age. "He said if anything ever happened to him, if you ever needed to disappear, this would give you what you needed." "What are you talking about?" "There is a safe, in the library, behind the 3rd bookshelf on the north wall. Your father hid it there years ago, before you were born. Not even Lucian knows about it. Elara took the key. It was warm from Magdalena's pocket. What's inside? I do not know. Your father never told me. Magdalena's eyes were wet. But he said it was insurance, power, enough to destroy men like Lucien Moretti. The words settled into Elara's bones like lead. Why are you telling me this now? Because I saw your face when you walked past this door. I have seen that face before. On your mother, the night she died. Magdalena's voice dropped to barely a whisper. You are planning to leave. And if you are going to run from a man like Lucien, you need more than hope. You need a weapon. Ichait. The library was on the second floor, a vast room lined with books that no one read. Lucien kept it for appearances. Old money, old culture. Elara had spent hours here in the early days of their marriage, trying to lose herself in stories that weren't her own. Now she stood in front of the north wall, counting shelves. Third from the left. She pulled on the shelf. It didn't budge. She tried again, harder, and felt something shift. A click. The entire section swung inward on hidden hinges, revealing a narrow gap in the wall. The safe was small, gunmetal gray, built into the brick. Elara's hands were steadier now. Adrenaline did that, turned fear into focus. She slid the key into the lock. It turned. Inside was a leather-bound ledger, thick and worn. Beneath it, a stack of photographs and a sealed envelope with her name written in her father's handwriting. She grabbed everything and shoved it into the inside pocket of her coat. Then she closed the safe, pushed the shelf back into place, and walked out. Mug. The rain was coming down harder now, hammering the roof like fists. Elara sat on the floor of her bedroom, the ledger open in her lap, and read. At first, the entries didn't make sense. Dates, names, numbers. Then patterns started to emerge. Payments, routes, shipments crossing borders in the dead of night, politicians on payrolls, judges who looked the other way. A network so vast it stretched across 6 countries. Her father had been the architect. And Lucien was just one thread in a web that had been spinning for decades. But there was more. She flipped through pages, her pulse quickening, until she found a section marked with a red tab. The handwriting changed here, hurried, desperate. August 12th, 1998. Marco Moretti will not cooperate. He threatens to expose the routes through Genoa. He has become a liability. Measures must be taken. Elara's breath caught. Marco Moretti, Lucien's father. She kept reading. August 19th, 1998. It is done. Marco's death has been ruled an accident. Lucien will inherit the empire, and he does not yet know the full scope of what his father protected. He is young, manageable. In time, he will serve our interests. The room tilted. Elara gripped the edge of the ledger, her vision blurring. Her father had killed Lucien's father, and then he'd sold her to Lucien like a peace offering wrapped in white lace and lies. She turned the page. The next entry was dated 3 months before her mother died. Catherine knows too much. She found the ledger. She is threatening to go to the authorities. I cannot allow this. If she speaks, everything collapses. She will not speak. Elara stopped breathing. Her mother hadn't died in a car accident. She'd been murdered. By the man who raised her. The man who smiled at her across the dinner table and called her his little girl. She closed the ledger. Her hands were numb. Her entire body felt like it was shutting down, one system at a time, trying to protect itself from the truth. But there was no protecting herself now. She opened the envelope. Inside was a single photograph. Her mother, young and smiling, holding a baby. Elara. And a note written in her mother's handwriting. If you are reading this, I am gone. Your father is not the man you think he is. Trust Magdalena. She will help you. And if you ever find the ledger, burn it all down. I love you. Always. Elara folded the note carefully and tucked it into her bra, close to her heart. Then she stood, pulled a canvas bag from the closet, and started packing. 3 changes of clothes. Cash from the drawer Lucien never checked. A burner phone Magdalena had slipped her 2 months ago, just in case. The ledger. The photographs. Her passport. She left everything else. At 2:14 a.m., she walked out the back door, through the garden gate that was always left unlocked because no one thought she'd ever have the courage to run. The rain soaked through her coat in seconds, but she didn't stop. She kept walking, away from the mansion, away from the man who never loved her, away from the life she'd been sold into. Behind her, in the dining hall, Lucien poured another whiskey and stared at the shattered porcelain on the floor. He didn't know yet, but he would. The taxi driver was a man in his 60s with kind eyes and a limp. He found her on the side of the road 3 miles from the estate, drenched and shaking, and pulled over without asking questions. "Where to?" he asked in Italian. Elara's Italian was broken, learned from Magdalena in stolen moments. "North," she said. "Away from here." He looked at her in the rearview mirror. She could see him taking in the details. The expensive coat, the haunted eyes, the way her hands wouldn't stop trembling. "You in trouble?" She didn't answer. He sighed and put the car in gear. "North it is." They drove in silence for 20 minutes. The city lights faded behind them, replaced by dark roads and empty fields. Elara watched the rain streak across the window and tried to remember how to breathe. "My daughter ran away once," the driver said suddenly. "Married a bad man. Took her 2 years to find the courage to leave." He glanced at her in the mirror again. "She lived." Elara met his eyes. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. Men like the one you're running from, they don't let go easy." "I know." He drove faster. By dawn, they were 50 miles north in a truck stop that smelled like diesel and burnt coffee. The driver pulled over and turned in his seat. "This is as far as I can take you without putting my family at risk." He pulled out a crumpled piece of paper and scribbled something on it. "My cousin runs a boarding house in Verona. Tell him Carlo sent you. He'll ask questions, but he'll keep you safe for a few days." Elara took the paper. Her throat was too tight to speak. "Go," Carlo said gently, "before someone notices you're gone." She got out of the cab and watched him drive away, red taillights disappearing into the gray morning. Then she turned and walked into the truck stop. Lucien found the ring at 6:32 a.m. It was sitting on his desk in the study, next to a handwritten note. "I'm not your transaction anymore." He stared at it for a long time. Then he opened the safe in the wall behind his desk, the one that held his most important documents, the ones even his closest men didn't know about. It was empty. Not empty. There was something inside. A photograph. Old. Faded. His father, standing next to a man Lucien recognized from pictures. Elara's father. They were shaking hands, smiling, and beneath the photograph, written in ink that had bled through the paper, "Ask your wife what her father really did." Lucien's hand closed around the photograph, crumpling it. Then he picked up the phone. "Find her," he said. "I don't care what it takes. Bring her back, alive, untouched, no exceptions." He hung up. Across the room, the rain had stopped. Morning light filtered through the windows, pale and cold. For the first time in 10 years, Lucien Moretti felt afraid. Not of losing control, not of enemies or rivals or the empire crumbling, afraid of what she knew and what she might do with it. Elara sat in the back of a cargo truck heading toward the Austrian border, wedged between crates of machine parts and a canvas tarp that smelled like oil. The driver, a man named Sandro who owed Carlo a favor, hadn't asked questions. Just pointed to the back and told her to stay quiet. She held the ledger against her chest and closed her eyes. Somewhere behind her, Lucien was waking up to an empty house and a truth he couldn't bury. Somewhere ahead, the world was waiting. And for the first time in her life, Elara wasn't afraid of what came next. She was ready to burn it all down. The border crossing took 3 hours. Elara stayed hidden under the tarp, barely breathing, while guards inspected the truck. She heard their voices, bored, routine, and then the engine started again and they were moving. When Sandro finally pulled over and told her it was safe, they were in a small village outside Innsbruck. Snow-capped mountains loomed in the distance, stark and beautiful. "This is where I leave you," Sandro said. He handed her a thermos of coffee and a sandwich wrapped in paper. Carlo called ahead. "There's a woman named Greta who runs a guest house 2 streets over. She'll take you in for a few days. After that, you're on your own." Elara nodded. "Thank you." Don't thank me. Just stay alive. She watched him drive away, then turned and walked into the village. Mums. Greta was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. She looked Elara up and down when she arrived at the guest house, took in the expensive coat and the exhaustion written across her face, and nodded once. Carlo says you need a place to hide. How long? I don't know. You in trouble with the law? No. With a man? Elara hesitated. Yes. Greta snorted. Aren't we all? She stepped aside. Room's upstairs, second door on the left. Don't make noise. Don't answer the door. And don't tell me your real name. I don't want to know. Elara climbed the stairs and locked herself in the small room. It had a bed, a chair, and a window that looked out over the village square. She set the ledger on the bed and sat down next to it. Then she opened it again and started reading. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, then began to fall. Elara read every page, every entry, every name. The network was bigger than she'd imagined. Judges, senators, clergy, businessmen, all of them connected, all of them complicit. And at the center of it all, her father. She found more entries about her mother, about the night she died, about how her father had staged the accident, paid off the coroner, silenced anyone who asked questions. Elara's hands shook as she read. Rage built in her chest, hot and sharp, until she thought she might scream. But she didn't. She kept reading. Near the end of the ledger, she found a name she recognized. Don Salvatore Salviere, her father's former partner. The man who'd walked away from the network 20 years ago and disappeared into obscurity. The man her father had always spoken of with a mixture of respect and hatred. If anyone knew the full scope of the network, if anyone could help her dismantle it, it was Salviere. Elara pulled out the burner phone and turned it on for the first time. No messages, no calls. Just a blank screen and a single contact saved under the name Emergency. She dialed. It rang 4 times before a gravelly voice answered. Who is this? My name is Elara Vance. My father was... I know who your father was. A pause. You shouldn't be calling this number. I have the ledger. Silence. Long and heavy. Where are you? Austria. Get to Switzerland. I'll send you an address. Another pause. And Elara, don't trust anyone, not even me. The line went dead. Elara stared at the phone, then she turned it off, pulled the battery out, and threw both pieces in the trash. She had 24 hours to get to Switzerland, and a husband who was hunting her. Litas. Lucien stood in the library, staring at the open safe behind the bookshelf. His men had found it an hour ago, after tearing the house apart looking for answers. The ledger was gone. He'd known. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he'd known she'd taken something. But seeing the empty safe made it real. She had everything, every name, every route, every payment, every crime his empire was built on. And worse, she had the truth about his father. He turned to the man standing beside him, Dante, his second in command, the only person he trusted. How long before she runs out of places to hide? Dante's face was grim. Depends on who she knows. If she's smart, she'll go to ground for a few weeks. If she's desperate, she'll run straight to someone who can use the ledger against us. Who? Lucien closed his eyes. Salviere, Dante swore softly. He's been off the grid for 20 years. He's also the only man alive who knows more about that network than her father did. Lucien opened his eyes. Find out if she's made contact. Tap every line, every informant, every border checkpoint between here and Switzerland. I want to know the second she surfaces. And when we find her, Lucien's jaw tightened. Bring her to me. No one else touches her. Understand? Dante nodded and left. Lucien stood alone in the library, surrounded by books and ghosts. He thought about the night he'd told her the truth, the way her face had gone blank, the way she'd walked out without looking back. He'd expected anger, tears, maybe even violence. He hadn't expected her to disappear, and he hadn't expected it to hurt this much. Elara crossed into Switzerland on foot, hiking through mountain passes that left her lungs burning and her legs screaming. She ditched the expensive coat 2 days ago, traded it for a thick wool jacket and boots from a secondhand shop in Innsbruck. She looked like a different person now, hair tied back, no makeup, dirt under her nails. Good. The address Salvier had sent led her to a small chalet outside Lucerne, tucked into the hills where the road ended and the forest began. Smoke curled from the chimney. A single light burned in the window. Elara knocked. The door opened. An old man stood there, stooped and gray, but his eyes were sharp as glass. "You look like your mother," Salvier said. Elara's throat tightened. "Did you know her?" "I knew everyone." He stepped aside. "Come in. We don't have much time." She followed him into a small sitting room. The walls were lined with books, maps, photographs. A fire crackled in the hearth. Salvieri sat down heavily in a worn armchair and gestured to the couch. "Show me." Elara pulled the ledger from her bag and handed it to him. He opened it, flipped through the pages. His face didn't change, but his hands tightened on the leather. "Your father was a meticulous man," he said finally, "and a monster." "I know. Do you?" He looked up at her. "Do you understand what this is? This isn't just evidence. This is a death sentence for everyone named in here. Politicians, judges, businessmen. Half of them are still in power. The other half are protected by people who are." "Good." Salvier smiled grimly. "You sound like your mother. She knew, didn't she, about all of it?" "She found an earlier version of this ledger, confronted your father, threatened to go to the authorities." He closed the book. "He killed her the next day." Elara's vision blurred. "Why didn't anyone stop him?" "Because men like your father don't get stopped. They get replaced." Salvieri leaned forward. "And now you have the power to replace him. The question is, what are you going to do with it? Expose it, all of it. You'll make enemies you can't imagine." "I already have." Salvier studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "There's a journalist. Works for a Swiss paper. I've used him before. He's trustworthy, and he has contacts in every major publication in Europe. If you give him the ledger, he'll know what to do with it." "And Lucien? What about him?" "He's hunting me." "Of course he is. You're the only person who can destroy him." Salvieri's gaze sharpened. "Do you want him destroyed?" Elara hesitated. She thought about the night Lucien told her the truth, the coldness in his voice, the way he'd looked at her like she was nothing. But she also thought about the morning she'd wake up and find coffee waiting for her, made exactly the way she liked it. The nights he'd sit across from her at dinner and ask about her day, even when he was drowning in his own problems. The way he'd kissed her once, just once, like he meant it. "I don't know," she admitted. Salvier sighed. "Then you'd better figure it out, because when this ledger goes public, there won't be anywhere left to hide. Not for him. Not for you." That night, Elara sat alone in the guest room Salvier had given her, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, she would meet the journalist, hand over the ledger, watch the empire burn. But tonight, she let herself think about Lucy. Not the man who'd broken her. The man who'd existed in the spaces between, the quiet moments when his guard dropped, and she caught glimpses of something softer underneath. She wondered if that man had ever been real, or if she'd just been desperate enough to imagine him. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. And somewhere in the dark, Lucien Moretti crossed the Swiss border, alone, unarmed, looking for the only woman who'd ever mattered, even if he'd realized it too late. The journalist's name was Henrik Moss, and he looked exactly like someone who'd spent 30 years digging through other people's secrets, gaunt, gray-bearded, with eyes that had seen too much and believed too little. He sat across from Elara in a cafe near the Lucerne train station, a cup of black coffee cooling between his hands. "Let me see it," he said. Elara slid the ledger across the table. Henrik didn't touch it immediately. He just stared at the worn leather cover like it might explode. "Salvier said you were coming, didn't say you'd be carrying a nuclear bomb." He finally opened it, scanning the first few pages. His expression didn't change, but his breathing did, shallow, controlled, like a man trying not to react. He closed it after 2 minutes. "Do you understand what this is?" "Yes." "No." Henrik leaned forward. "You think you do, but you don't. This isn't just evidence of corruption. This is a map to every dirty secret in 6 countries. Politicians who are still in office, judges who are still ruling, businessmen who are still operating, Half of them will deny it. The other half will kill to bury it. Good, Elara said. Let them try. Henrik studied her. You're not doing this for justice. You're doing this for revenge. Does it matter? To me? No. To you? He pushed the ledger back toward her. It will. Eventually. Elara's jaw tightened. How long will it take? To publish? 2 weeks? Maybe 3. I need to verify names, cross-reference dates, build corroborating evidence. This is too big to rush. One mistake, and the whole thing falls apart. I don't have 3 weeks. Then you shouldn't have run from someone like Lucien Moretti. Henrik stood, pulling on his coat. I'll contact you when I'm ready. Until then, stay out of sight. And for God's sake, don't trust anyone. He left the ledger on the table and walked out. Elara sat there, staring at it. Her hands were shaking again. She pressed them flat against the wood, willing them to stop. Behind her, the cafe door opened. Cold air rushed in. She didn't turn around. Elara. Her entire body went rigid. That voice. Low, controlled, carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken threats. Lucien. She turned slowly. He stood in the doorway, snow dusting his shoulders, no coat despite the cold. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Stubble shadowing his jaw, circles under his eyes, hair disheveled. But his gaze was sharp as ever, locked onto her like a predator sighting prey. How did you find me? Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Does it matter? He stepped inside, letting the door close behind him. The few other patrons in the cafe suddenly found reasons to leave. Within 30 seconds, they were alone. Elara's hand moved toward her bag. Lucien noticed. I'm not armed, he said. No guards outside, no men waiting in the shadows. Just me. Why should I believe you? Because if I wanted you dead, you'd be dead. He moved closer, stopping a few feet from her table. I'm here to talk. We have nothing to talk about. We have everything to talk about. His eyes dropped to the ledger on the table. That's what you took, your father's insurance policy. Elara's pulse hammered. You knew about it. Not until you disappeared. Then I started looking. He pulled out the chair Henrik had vacated and sat down without asking. Your father was many things. Sloppy wasn't one of them. I knew there had to be something, some leverage he kept in case the partnership went south. Partnership. Elara laughed, bitter and sharp. Is that what you call it? He murdered your father, Lucien, orchestrated his death and made it look like an accident. And then he sold me to you like I was part of the inheritance. Lucien's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. I know. You know? Her voice rose. You knew, and you still... I didn't know until 3 days ago. He cut her off, his tone cold and precise. I found documents, letters, proof. Your father killed mine because Marco wanted out of the network. He was going to expose everything, so your father eliminated him and groomed me to take his place. Elara felt the air leave her lungs. You're lying. I wish I was. Lucien leaned back in his chair. Your father played us both, used you to keep me close, keep me compliant, and it worked. For 11 months, I believed the arrangement was clean, mutually beneficial. Stop calling it an arrangement. You married me. You stood in front of... She caught herself. You made vows. I made a deal. And that's all I ever was to you. A deal. Lucien's jaw tightened. Yes. The word hit like a slap. Elara grabbed the ledger and stood. Then we're done here. Sit down. Go to hell. Sit down. His voice dropped into something dangerous. Not a threat, a command. Elara's legs locked. She hated herself for it, but she sat. Lucien exhaled slowly. You can't publish that ledger. Watch me. You don't understand what you're holding. That network, it's not just criminals. It's infrastructure, supply chains that feed hospitals, trade routes that keep entire regions from starving, politicians who, yes, are corrupt, but who also keep worse men from taking power. You expose this. You don't just burn the guilty. You burn everything. Maybe everything deserves to burn. You don't believe that. You don't know what I believe. Elara leaned forward. You never bothered to ask. Lucien's mask cracked, just for a second. You're right, I didn't. Silence stretched between them. Why are you really here? Elara asked. He looked at her, really looked at her. To give you a choice. What choice? Walk away. Take the ledger, disappear, start over somewhere no one will find you. I'll make sure no one comes after you. You'll be free. And in exchange, you don't publish. Elara laughed. It was a hollow, broken sound. You think I'd trade my freedom for your empire? No. Lucien's voice softened. I think you'd trade it for the lives of the people caught in the crossfire, because that's who you are. You care, even when you shouldn't. She wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, but the words stuck in her throat because deep down, she knew he was right. I can't just let this go, she whispered. I know. My mother, I know. My father, I know. Lucien's hand moved across the table, not touching her, just close. But revenge doesn't bring them back, it just makes you like the men who took them from you. Elara pulled her hand away. Don't pretend you care about me. You made it very clear you don't. I lied. Her breath hitched. Lucien's eyes were dark, tired, and for the first time since she'd known him, honest. I lied that night, in the dining hall, when I told you it was just a transaction. Why? Because loving you was the most dangerous thing I've ever done. And I thought if I pushed you away, if I made you hate me, you'd be safer. He laughed bitterly. Instead, I drove you straight into the fire. Elara's chest ached. You're still lying. I'm not. Prove it. Her voice cracked. Prove you ever gave a damn about me. Lucien stood, slowly. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, set it on the table between them. What is this? Divorce papers. Signed. Dated yesterday. He met her eyes. You want to be free? You're free. No strings. No conditions. Walk out that door and never look back. Elara unfolded the papers with shaking hands. His signature was there, black ink on white paper, legal, binding, real. I don't understand, she said. You were never supposed to be part of this world. Your father dragged you into it. I kept you in it, but you deserve better. Lucien's voice was raw. So take it. The divorce, the freedom, the life you should have had. Just don't destroy yourself trying to destroy me. Elara stared at the papers, then at him. You think this changes anything? No, but it's the only thing I have left to give you. She stood, the ledger clutched to her chest. I need time to think. You don't have time. Henrik Moss works fast. Once he starts making calls, verifying sources, people will notice. And when they notice, they'll come for you. Let them. Elara, I said I need time. She moved toward the door. Lucien didn't follow. Where will you go? She stopped, looked back. Somewhere you can't find me. I'll always find you. Then maybe you should stop looking. She walked out into the snow. Salvier was waiting when she returned to the chalet. He sat by the fire, a glass of brandy in his hand, looking older than he had that morning. You met with him, he said. Not a question. How did you know? Because I've been in this business long enough to recognize the look of someone who just had their world flipped upside down. He gestured to the chair across from him. Sit. Elara sat. He wants me to walk away. Of course he does. You're holding a gun to his head. He signed divorce papers. Salvier's eyebrows rose. Did he now? He said he lied. That night, when he told me he never loved me. Do you believe him? I don't know what to believe anymore. Elara set the ledger on the coffee table. He said publishing this will hurt innocent people, that the network isn't just criminals, it's infrastructure. He's not wrong. But your mother is dead, and no amount of revenge will change that. Salvieri took a long sip of brandy. But if you want my advice, which you didn't ask for, but I'm giving anyway, stop thinking about what your mother would want. Start thinking about what you want. I want justice. No. You want peace. There's a difference. He set his glass down. Justice means exposing the ledger, watching the empire crumble, and spending the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. Peace means letting go, moving on, building something new. I can't just let them get away with it. Who said anything about letting them get away? Salvieri leaned forward. There's more than one way to burn an empire, Elara. You don't need to throw the match yourself. Sometimes you just need to leave it where the right person will find it. She frowned. What are you saying? I'm saying Henrik Moss isn't the only journalist in Europe, and you're not the only person with a grudge against that network. He pulled a business card from his pocket and slid it across the table. There's a woman, Interpol. She's been investigating organized crime for 15 years. She has resources, protection, and she's been looking for a break in this case for the last decade. Elara picked up the card. You want me to turn it over to the authorities? I want you to survive. And you won't survive if you make yourself the face of this crusade. Salvier's voice softened. Your mother didn't die so you could throw your life away on revenge. She died trying to protect you. Don't make her sacrifice meaningless. Elara's throat tightened. What if I can't let it go? Then you'll end up just like your father, powerful, feared, and completely alone. She spent the night staring at the ceiling, the business card on the nightstand beside her. Sleep didn't come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her mother's face, her father's handwriting, Lucien's signature on the divorce papers. By dawn, she'd made a decision. She packed her bag, tucked the ledger inside, and left the chalet before Salvieri woke. The Interpol office was in Geneva, a 3-hour train ride through mountain passes and frozen lakes. Elara kept her head down the entire trip, watching the landscape blur past. The woman on the business card was named Agent Claire Duval. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, with the kind of presence that made you sit up straighter without realizing it. Salvier called ahead, she said when Elara was escorted into her office. Said you have something I'd want to see. Elara set the ledger on the desk. Duval opened it, flipped through a few pages. Her expression didn't change, but her posture did. Shoulders squaring, spine straightening. Where did you get this? My father. And where is he now? Dead. Duval closed the ledger. This is authenticated? Every entry, names, dates, payments, it's all there. And you're willing to testify? Elara hesitated. If I testify, I'm a target. You're already a target. The second you walked out of your husband's house with this, you became one. Duval leaned back in her chair. But if you cooperate, I can offer protection, witness relocation, a new identity, a new life. And Lucien? What about him? He's in the ledger, but he didn't kill anyone. He didn't orchestrate any of this. He just inherited it. Duval's gaze sharpened. You're defending him. I'm telling you the truth. The truth is he's complicit. He benefited from that network. He kept it running. Duval tapped the ledger. That makes him guilty. Then we're all guilty. Elara's voice was hard. Everyone who turned a blind eye. Everyone who didn't ask questions. Everyone who let this happen. Fair point, Duval stood. But the law doesn't work on philosophy. It works on evidence. And this, she gestured to the ledger. This is enough to put 50 people behind bars, including your husband. Ex-husband. The papers are signed. Doesn't matter. He's still accountable. Elara closed her eyes. How long will it take? To build a case? Months. Maybe a year. We'll need to verify everything, interview witnesses, coordinate with multiple jurisdictions. Duval crossed her arms. In the meantime, you'll need to stay hidden. No contact with anyone from your old life. That includes Lucien. I understand. Do you? Because once we start this, there's no going back. You'll be the key witness in one of the biggest corruption cases in European history. Every enemy your father made, every ally Lucien has, they'll all want you dead. Elara opened her eyes. I know. Duval studied her for a long moment, then she nodded. All right. I'll start the paperwork. You'll be placed in protective custody until we can arrange relocation. How soon? Tonight. Elara's stomach dropped. That fast? The second I open this ledger officially, the clock starts ticking. We move now, or we risk losing you. Duval picked up her phone. I'll have my team escort you to a safe house. Wait. Elara stood. I need to do something first. No. Please. Just one thing. One conversation. Duval's expression hardened. With who? Elara didn't answer. She didn't have to. The hotel was small, tucked into a side street in the old quarter of Geneva. Elara found the room number Salvier had given her and knocked. Lucien opened the door. He looked worse than he had at the cafe. Shadows under his eyes deeper, stubble darker, shirt wrinkled. But when he saw her, something in his face shifted. Relief. Raw and unguarded. "You came," he said. "I shouldn't have." "But you did." He stepped aside. "Come in." The room was sparse. A bed, a chair, a window overlooking the street. No guards, no weapons. Just like he'd said. Elara stayed near the door. I turned the ledger over to Interpol. Lucien's face went blank. "When?" "2 hours ago." He sat down on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. "So that's it. It's done." "Yes." "They'll arrest me." "Probably." "And you'll testify." "If I have to." Lucien looked up at her. "Will you tell them I didn't know about my father, about your mother, about any of it until you left?" "Will it matter?" "No, but I'd like the truth on record. For once." Elara's throat burned. "Why didn't you fight harder? To keep me? To stop this?" "Because you were right. I never asked what you wanted. I just assumed I knew." He stood, crossing the room until he was inches from her. "So I'm asking now. What do you want, Elara?" She looked up at him. At the man who'd broken her. At the man who'd saved her. At the man she wasn't sure she'd ever really known. "I want you to tell me the truth. No games, no strategy, just the truth." "About what?" "Did you ever love me? Even a little?" Lucien's jaw worked. For a moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he did. "I loved you from the first night. When you walked into that dining hall in your wedding dress, looking terrified and furious and so damn brave. I loved you when you tried to learn Italian from Magdalena, even though you butchered every word. I loved you when you'd fall asleep on the couch with a book on your chest. I loved you so much it scared the hell out of me." His voice cracked. "And I destroyed it. Because that's what I do. I destroy everything I care about. It's all I know how to do." Elara's vision blurred. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because love is weakness in my world, and I thought if I kept you at a distance, if I made you believe I didn't care, you'd be safe. You'd survive." He laughed bitterly. "Instead, I drove you away, and you're probably going to put me in prison." "I don't want to." "But you will, because it's the right thing to do." He reached up, his hand hovering near her face. "Can I?" She nodded. His fingers brushed her cheek, feather light. "I'm sorry. For all of it." "I know. Will you ever forgive me?" Elara pulled back. "I don't know, maybe. Someday." She stepped toward the door. "But I can't stay. They're coming for me. Witness protection, new name, new life." "Where will they send you?" "I don't know. They won't tell me until we're gone." Lucien's hand dropped. "Will I ever see you again?" "No." The word hung between them. "Then this is goodbye," he said. "Yes." He nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, I hope you find what you're looking for. Peace, happiness, whatever it is." "You too." She opened the door. "Elara." She stopped. "Thank you for not hating me." She looked back. "I never hated you, Lucien. That was the problem." She walked out. This time, she didn't look back. The safe house was outside the city, a farmhouse surrounded by fields and silence. 2 agents escorted her inside. Agent Duval was already there, setting up equipment on the kitchen table. "We'll start interviews tomorrow," Duval said. "Get your story on record. After that, we'll move you to a more permanent location." Elara nodded. She felt numb, hollowed out. "There's food in the fridge, bedrooms upstairs. Try to get some rest." But rest didn't come. Elara lay in the small bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every moment, every choice that had led her here. Somewhere in Geneva, Lucien was probably doing the same. Somewhere in the world, the network was still running. And somewhere in her chest, a part of her wondered if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. 3 days later, the first arrest began. Elara watched the news from the safe house, saw the headlines flash across the screen, politicians detained, businessmen under investigation. The ledger's contents leaked to the press. Her father's name was everywhere. So was Lucian's. They're calling it the largest corruption scandal in 50 years, Agent Duval said, standing beside her. You did this. Elara didn't feel victorious, she just felt tired. When can I leave? Soon. We're finalizing your new identity. Should be ready by the end of the week. And Lucien? Duval's expression hardened. He disappeared. Elara's heart stopped. What? We went to arrest him. The hotel room was empty. No trace. No trail. She crossed her arms. He had help. Someone with resources. Salvier. Maybe. Or someone else in the network who wants to protect him. Duval turned to face her. Does that bother you? Elara thought about it. No. Why not? Because he's not the monster I thought he was, and maybe he deserves a chance to be something else. Duval shook her head. You're too soft for this world. Maybe, but I'm still here. That night, Elara found an envelope slipped under her door. No postage, no return address, just her name written in familiar handwriting. She opened it. Inside was a single photograph, her and Lucien on their wedding day. She was smiling. So was he. It was the only picture she'd ever seen where he looked genuinely happy. And beneath it, a note. I'm sorry I couldn't be the man you deserved, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to become him. Be safe. Be free. L. Elara held the photograph, her thumb tracing the edge of his face. Then she tore the note into pieces and let them fall like snow. Because some things couldn't be forgiven, and some people couldn't be saved. But maybe, just maybe, they could both start over. Somewhere far away from each other. Somewhere the past couldn't reach. She went to the window and looked out at the dark fields, the distant lights of the city blinking like stars. Tomorrow, she'd become someone new. But tonight, she let herself mourn the woman she used to be. The girl who believed in love. The wife who thought she could fix a broken man. The daughter who trusted her father. All of them gone now. Burned away in the fire she'd started. And from the ashes, someone stronger would rise. Agent Duval knocked on her door at dawn. It's time. Elara grabbed her bag, the only possession she had left, and followed her downstairs. A car waited outside. Black, unmarked, engine running. Where are we going? Elara asked. Somewhere they'll never find you. Duval opened the door. Get in. Elara hesitated. For one brief, reckless moment, she thought about running, about disappearing on her own terms, about finding Lucien and demanding answers she wasn't sure she wanted. But then she remembered her mother's note. Burn it all down, and she got in the car. The door closed, the engine hummed. And as they drove away from the safe house, away from the life she'd known, away from the man she'd almost loved, Elara Vance made herself a promise. She would survive this. She would build a new life. And she would never, ever let anyone make her feel powerless again. Behind them, the sun rose over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of fire. A new day. A new beginning, and no way back. The car drove for 6 hours straight, winding through mountain passes and empty highways until the landscape shifted from snow-capped peaks to rolling hills dotted with vineyards. Elara sat in the back seat, watching the world blur past, her mind somewhere between numb and alert. Agent Duval sat beside her, typing on a laptop, occasionally taking calls in rapid French. The driver, a thick-necked man who hadn't spoken a single word, kept his eyes on the road. Where are we going? Elara asked for the third time. Safe house. Outside Lyon. You'll stay there until we finalize your relocation paperwork. Duval didn't look up from her screen. 2 weeks. Maybe 3. And then? Then you disappear. New name, new passport, new history. We're thinking South America, Argentina, maybe. Somewhere far enough that the network won't think to look. Elara's chest tightened. I don't speak Spanish. You'll learn. Duval finally glanced at her. It's better than being dead. The car turned onto a narrow gravel road, trees closing in on both sides. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the ground. They pulled up to a stone farmhouse, isolated and quiet. No neighbors. No lights, except the single bulb burning over the front door. Home sweet home, Duval said, climbing out. Elara followed, her legs stiff from sitting. The air smelled like earth and pine. Peaceful. Almost. Inside, the house was sparse but functional. A kitchen with outdated appliances, a living room with a sagging couch, 2 bedrooms upstairs, bars on the windows. You'll stay on the second floor, Duval said, leading her up the narrow staircase. Don't leave the house. Don't call anyone. Don't go near the windows after dark. For how long? As long as it takes. Elara's room was small, a bed, a dresser, a lamp. The window faced the woods. She could see the last rays of sunlight filtering through the branches. There's food downstairs. Try to get some rest. I'll be back tomorrow to start the debrief. Duval paused at the door. And Elara? Don't do anything stupid. We're the only thing standing between you and a bullet. She left. Elara sat on the edge of the bed and let the silence settle around her. This was it. Her new life? 4 walls and a locked door. Freedom. She almost laughed. Eek. The first 2 days passed in a haze. Elara slept fitfully, ate little, and spent most of her time staring out the window at the trees. Agent Duval came each morning with a recorder and a list of questions. Walk me through the ledger again. Start with the first entry. Tell me about your father's associates. Who visited the house? Who did he trust? What did Lucien know? When did he know it? Elara answered mechanically, her voice flat. The words felt distant, like they belonged to someone else. On the 3rd day, Duval arrived with a different agent, a man in his 50s with cold eyes and a briefcase handcuffed to his wrist. This is Agent Renault, Duval said. He's with financial crimes. He needs to verify some of the entries in the ledger. Renault set the briefcase on the kitchen table and opened it. Inside was the ledger. Elara's breath caught. I thought you were keeping that locked up. We are. This is a copy. Renault pulled out a stack of photocopied pages. We need you to walk us through the payment structures, specifically the offshore accounts listed in the back. Elara leaned over the pages, scanning the entries. I don't know anything about offshore accounts. My father never discussed that with me. But you read the ledger. I read it. I didn't memorize it. Renault exchanged a glance with Duval. Something passed between them. Silent, quick. What? Elara asked. Nothing. Duval pulled out a chair. Let's go through it together. They spent the next 3 hours dissecting the ledger page by page. Renault asked questions that felt less like clarification and more like interrogation. Why did your father route payments through Geneva instead of Zurich? How did he know which politicians to target? Who introduced him to the network in the first place? Elara's head throbbed. I don't know. I wasn't part of this. I was just what? Renault leaned forward. Just the daughter? Just the wife? You lived in that house for years. You expect us to believe you didn't know anything? I didn't. Then how did you know where to find the ledger? Elara froze. What? The ledger, hidden behind a bookshelf in a safe your husband didn't know existed. How did you know it was there? Magdalena told me. The maid. Convenient. It's the truth. Renault sat back, his expression unreadable. We'll verify that. Duval stood abruptly. That's enough for today. Elara, go upstairs. We'll continue tomorrow. Elara didn't move. What's going on? Nothing. Just routine verification. It doesn't feel routine. Go. Upstairs. Now. Elara climbed the stairs, her pulse hammering. Something was wrong. She could feel it in the air, in the way Duval wouldn't meet her eyes, in the way Renault had looked at her like she was a suspect instead of a witness. She pressed her ear to the door, straining to hear the conversation downstairs. Renault's voice, low and clipped. She knows more than she's saying. Duval. Or she's exactly what she appears to be, a pawn. Pawns don't walk out of marriages with ledgers that could topple governments. Her father hid it. She found it. That's the story. And you believe her? A pause. I don't know. Elara pulled back from the door, her stomach churning. They didn't trust her. Worse, they were starting to think she was complicit. Ooh. That night, Elara couldn't sleep. She paced the small room, her mind racing. She'd given them everything, the ledger, her testimony, her entire life. And now they were looking at her like she was the enemy. At 2 a.m., she heard a car pull up outside. Voices, low and urgent. She moved to the window, careful to stay in the shadows. 3 men climbed out of a black sedan, not Interpol. She could tell by the way they moved, smooth, deliberate, military precision. One of them looked up at the house. Elara's blood turned to ice. She recognized him, one of Lucian's men, a lieutenant named Marco. They'd found her. She backed away from the window, her mind screaming. The agents downstairs, Duval and the driver, they were supposed to be watching, supposed to be protecting her. But the front door opened without resistance. No shouts, no gunfire, just silence. Elara's breath came in short, panicked gasps. She looked around the room. No weapon, no exit except the window, and it was a 15-foot drop to the ground. Footsteps on the stairs. She grabbed the lamp from the nightstand, ripping the cord from the wall. It wasn't much, but it was something. The door opened. Marco stepped inside, a gun in his hand. He looked at the lamp and smiled. "Put it down, Mrs. Moretti." "I'm not—" Her voice cracked. "I'm not his wife anymore." "Semantics," he gestured with the gun. "Downstairs. Now." "Where are the agents?" "Taken care of." Elara's stomach dropped. "You killed them." "No, we paid them." Marco's smile widened. "Turns out everyone has a price, even Interpol." The room spun. Duval, Renault, the driver. All of them. Bought. "Move," Marco said. Elara's legs felt like lead, but she forced herself to walk. Down the stairs, into the living room. Duval sat on the couch, very much alive. A briefcase open on the coffee table in front of her. Cash. Stacks of it. She looked up when Elara entered, her expression neutral. "I'm sorry, it's just business." Elara's voice came out as a whisper. "You sold me." "I secured my retirement." Duval stood, closing the briefcase. "Nothing personal." "Nothing personal?" Elara's voice rose. "I trusted you. I gave you everything. And I appreciate that, truly." Duval picked up the briefcase. "But the ledger's already in the right hands. The arrests have been made. My job is done. What happens to you now, that's between you and them." She walked past Elara without another glance. The door closed behind her. Marco holstered his gun. "Let's go." "Where?" "Lucian wants to see you." Elara's knees buckled. "He sent you?" "Who else?" "He said he'd let me go. He signed the papers. He lied." Marco grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the door. "Welcome to our world, princess. Everyone lies. Wag." They drove through the night, back into Switzerland, back toward Geneva. Elara sat in the back seat, hands zip-tied in front of her, mind blank with shock. Lucian had orchestrated this. All of it. The safe house, the protection, the promise of a new life, a trap. And she'd walked right into it. By dawn, they pulled up to a private airstrip outside the city. A small jet waited on the tarmac, engines running. Marco hauled her out of the car and up the stairs. Inside the cabin, Lucian sat in one of the leather seats, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked up when she entered. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Elara lunged. Marco caught her, slamming her back into the seat across from Lucian. She fought against the restraints, fury and betrayal burning through her veins. "You bastard," she spat. "You lying, manipulative bastard." Lucian took a slow sip of his drink. "Sit down." "Go to hell." "Sit down." Marco forced her into the seat. She glared at Lucian, chest heaving. "You said you'd let me go." "I did let you go. You went straight to Interpol." Lucian set his glass down. "Did you really think I'd just walk away? Let you destroy everything I've built? You said you loved me. I do love you. That's why you're still breathing." Elara laughed bitterly. "This is love?" "This is survival." Lucian leaned forward. "You handed over the ledger. You testified. You lit the fuse on a bomb that's going to blow up half of Europe. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences? I did what was right. You did what felt good. There's a difference." He stood, moving to the window. "The arrests have already started. Politicians, judges, businessmen, all scrambling to cover their asses. And they're all pointing fingers. At your father, at me. at anyone they can blame. Good. No, not good. Lucian turned back to her. Because when the dust settles, they're going to realize the ledger came from you, and they're going to come for you, not to arrest you, to silence you. Elara's throat tightened. So what? You're going to kill me first? Save them the trouble? I'm going to keep you alive, whether you like it or not. Why? Because you're the only leverage I have left. Lucian crouched in front of her, his eyes dark and serious. The network is collapsing. My empire is burning, but as long as I have you, I have something they want, a witness, a bargaining chip. You're using me. I'm protecting you. By kidnapping me? By keeping you out of their hands. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She jerked away. Don't touch me. Elara, I said don't touch me. Her voice broke. You don't get to do this. You don't get to pretend you're saving me when you're the reason I'm in danger in the first place. Lucian's jaw tightened. You're right. I am the reason. And I'll spend the rest of my life making up for it. But right now, I need you to trust me. Trust you? She laughed, sharp and bitter. You just proved I can't. He stood, walking back to his seat. Then hate me. But stay alive. The plane's engines roared to life. Elara stared out the window as they lifted off, the ground falling away beneath them. She didn't know where they were going. She didn't know what Lucien planned to do with her. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She'd never trust anyone again. Hike. They landed on a small island off the coast of Greece. No name, no airport, just a private strip carved into the hillside and a villa overlooking the sea. Marco cut the zip ties and escorted her inside. The villa was beautiful. White stone, open air, the sound of waves crashing against the rocks below. A cage dressed up as paradise. You'll stay here, Lucian said, leading her to a bedroom on the second floor. Everything you need is provided. Food, clothes, books. A prison? A sanctuary. Same thing. Lucian paused at the door. There are guards outside. Don't try to leave. The island is small and there's nowhere to go. The nearest mainland is 30 miles. So I'm stuck here. With you. With me. With Marco. With a handful of men who are loyal to me and no one else. He met her eyes. It's not ideal, but it's safe. For how long? As long as it takes. For what? For the network to collapse completely. For the heat to die down. For me to figure out how to get us both out of this alive. Elara sank onto the bed. And then what? You let me go? Give me a pat on the head and send me on my way? Then we figure out what comes next. Together. There is no together. There never was. Lucian's expression flickered. Pain. Real and raw. You're wrong. Am I? Elara stood, crossing the room until she was inches from him. You married me for power. You lied to me for months. You made me believe I was worthless. And now you've kidnapped me and dragged me to a goddamn island in the middle of nowhere. Tell me, Lucien, where in all of that was there ever an us? He didn't answer. She shoved past him, slamming the door behind her. 3 days passed. Elara stayed in her room, refusing to eat, refusing to speak to anyone. Marco brought meals on a tray and left them outside her door. Most of them went untouched. On the 4th day, Lucian came to her. He didn't knock, just opened the door and walked in. Elara was sitting by the window, staring out at the sea. You need to eat, he said. I need to leave. That's not an option. Then I guess I'll starve. Lucien sighed, pulling up a chair beside her. This isn't a negotiation, Elara. You're staying here. End of discussion. You can't keep me here forever. Watch me. She turned to look at him. Why are you doing this, really? And don't give me that leverage bullshit. What's the real reason? Lucien was quiet for a long moment. Because I failed you. Every step of the way I failed you. And this, keeping you safe, it's the only thing I can do to make it right. You can't make it right. I know. But I have to try. Elara looked back out at the water. I hate you. I know that too. They sat in silence. Then Elara spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Why did you sign the divorce papers if you were just going to take me anyway? Because I meant it. I wanted to set you free. But then Duval contacted me. Elara's head snapped around. What? The night you turned over the ledger, she reached out through a back channel, said you were in protective custody, said she could deliver you to me for the right price. Lucian's voice was hard. I didn't want to believe it, but I've been in this world long enough to know everyone has a price. So you bought her. I bought your life. And my freedom. You never had freedom, Elara. Not with that ledger. Not with your testimony. The second you went public, you became a target. Duval knew it. I knew it. The only person who didn't was you. Elara's hands trembled. I trusted her. I know. She looked me in the eye and promised she'd protect me. People lie, especially when there's money involved. You lied. Yes. So why should I believe anything you say now? Lucian met her gaze. Because I have nothing left to gain by lying to you. My empire is gone. My reputation is destroyed. The only thing I have left is you, and I'm not going to lose you again. You never had me. I did. Once. For a few fleeting moments when you smiled at me across the dinner table, and I let myself believe I could be something other than what I am. Elara's throat burned. And what are you? A man who destroys everything he touches. Lucian stood. But I'm trying to be better. For you. He left before she could respond. 19. That night, Elara finally ate. Not because she forgave him, not because she trusted him, but because she needed her strength. If she was going to escape this island, she'd need every ounce of it. She studied the villa over the next few days, noting the guards' rotations, the weak points in the perimeter, the boats docked at the small harbor below. Marco watched her like a hawk, but even he couldn't be everywhere at once. On the 7th night, she made her move. The moon was new, the sky dark. Elara slipped out of her room, barefoot and silent, moving through the villa like a ghost. She made it to the kitchen, grabbed a knife from the drawer, then she heard footsteps behind her. She spun. Lucien stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Going somewhere? Elara raised the knife. Get out of my way. No. I will hurt you. I know. He stepped closer. Do it. She hesitated. He took another step. You want to leave? Fine. Stab me. Take the boat. Swim to the mainland if you have to, but you'll be dead within a week. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Because I know the people hunting you, and they don't give second chances. I don't care. Yes, you do. Lucien's voice softened. You care about surviving, about building a new life, about being free, and the only way you get any of that is if you stay here, with me. I'd rather die. No, you wouldn't. Elara's hand shook. The knife felt heavy. Lucien reached out slowly, gently, and closed his hand around hers. Put it down, he whispered. I can't stay here. You can, and you will, because deep down you know I'm right. Tears burned her eyes. I hate this. I know. I hate you. I know. The knife clattered to the floor. Elara sank against the counter, her strength gone. Lucien pulled her into his arms, and for the first time since the island, she didn't fight him. She just broke. The next morning, Lucien received a call. Elara watched from the terrace as he paced the length of the villa, phone pressed to his ear, his expression dark. When he hung up, he looked older, tired. What is it? She asked. He turned to her. They found Magdalena. Elara's heart stopped. Who did? The network. What's left of it? His voice was flat. They tortured her. Wanted to know where you were, where the ledger came from. Did she tell them? No, she died before she could. The world tilted. Elara gripped the railing, her knees threatening to give out. Magdalena. The woman who'd raised her, who'd warned her, who'd given her the key to the safe. Dead because of her. This is my fault, she whispered. No, it's theirs. And mine. Lucien moved beside her. But it proves what I've been telling you. They won't stop. Not until you're dead, or they are. Elara looked out at the endless blue sea. Then we kill them first. Lucien's eyes widened. What? You heard me. She turned to face him, her gaze hard as stone. I'm done running. I'm done hiding. If they want me dead, they're going to have to work for it. Elara... No. She cut him off. You said I needed to trust you. Fine. I'll trust you. But you're going to help me. We're going to find every single person in that network who's still breathing, and we're going to make them pay. Lucian stared at her. Then slowly, he smiled. All right. All right? You want war? He extended his hand. Let's give them war. Elara took his hand, and in that moment, everything changed. She wasn't a victim anymore. She wasn't a pawn. She was a weapon. And she was about to burn the entire world down. The war room was a cramped office on the ground floor of the villa, maps spread across every surface, photographs pinned to the walls with red string connecting faces to locations to crimes. Elara stood at the center of it, arms crossed, studying the web of corruption her father had built. Lucien entered with Marco and two other men, Dante, his strategist, and a thin, nervous-looking man named Vieri, who'd worked in her father's organization before jumping ship. These are the ones still alive, Vieri said, tapping a cluster of photographs. Senator Grimaldi, Judge Castellano, the Borelli brothers, Don Calvino's nephew, Enzo. All of them profited from your father's network. All of them have blood on their hands. And all of them want me dead, Elara said. Correct. She turned to Lucien. Where do we start? With the weakest link. Lucien pointed to a photograph of a man in his 60s, gray-haired and soft around the middle. Judge Castellano. He's been taking bribes for 20 years, but he's a coward. Put enough pressure on him and he'll crack. What kind of pressure? The kind that makes him choose between his life and his colleagues. Lucien's smile was cold. We make him an offer. Testify against the others, or we leak evidence of every case he's rigged. He'll be disbarred, arrested, and bankrupt within a week. Elara studied the photograph. And if he refuses? Then we make good on the threat. Will that be enough? One judge? Well, no. But it'll be a start. Dante leaned over the table, tracing a line between photographs. Castellano can give us the Borelli brothers. They ran your father's shipping routes. Once we have them, we can dismantle the supply chain. No product, no money. No money, no power. Marco grunted. And while we're doing all this, they're hunting us. We can't just sit here and pick them off one by one. They'll find this island eventually. Let them, Elara said. All eyes turned to her. Let them come. We'll be ready. Lucien's jaw tightened. You want to turn this place into a battlefield. I want to end this. Fast, clean, all at once. She met his gaze. You said I needed to trust you. I'm asking you to trust me now. We draw them here. We make them think they have the advantage, and then we take them apart. Silence filled the room. Then Lucien nodded slowly. All right, we bait the trap, but we do it my way. Controlled, calculated, no unnecessary risks. Agreed. Dante cleared his throat. How do we get them to come? Elara smiled. It was a sharp, dangerous thing. We give them what they want. Me. Boag. The plan was simple. Risky as hell, but simple. They'd leak Elara's location through one of Vieri's old contacts, a low-level informant who still had ties to the Borelli brothers. Make it look accidental. A sloppy mistake. The kind of intel that seemed too good to ignore. They'll come within 48 hours, Vieri said, packing up his notes. The Borellis are impulsive, greedy. They'll want the glory of taking you down themselves. And the others? Elara asked. Grimaldi and Calvino's nephew will wait. See if the Borellis succeed. If they do, they'll swoop in and claim credit. If they don't, he shrugged, they'll come after you themselves. So we deal with the Borellis first. Exactly. Lucien walked Vieri to the door, exchanged a few low words, then returned to the war room. He looked at Elara, his expression unreadable. You don't have to do this. We can find another way. There is no other way. You said it yourself. They won't stop until I'm dead. She straightened. This ends now. On my terms. And if it goes wrong, then I die fighting instead of hiding. I can live with that. I can't. The words hung between them. Elara stepped closer. Why? Because I'm your leverage? Your bargaining chip? Because I love you. Lucien's voice was raw. And I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, but losing you again isn't going to be one of them. You can't protect me forever. I can try. She reached up, her hand hovering near his face. Then stop trying to save me, and help me save myself. His hand covered hers, warm and steady. All right, he whispered. We do this together. They spent the next 2 days fortifying the villa. Marco and Dante rigged the perimeter with motion sensors and cameras. Lucien stockpiled weapons, guns, ammunition, knives. Elara trained with Marco, learning how to shoot, how to move, how to kill if she had to. Her hands shook the first time she held a gun. Don't think, Marco said, standing behind her at the makeshift range. Just aim and pull the trigger. She fired. The recoil jolted through her arms. The target, a piece of plywood 50 feet away, splintered. Again. She fired again and again, until her hand stopped shaking and her aim steadied. By the second day, she could hit the center mass 9 times out of 10. You're a natural, Marco said, almost grudgingly. I'm motivated. That night, Lucien found her on the terrace, cleaning the gun Marco had given her, a compact Glock 19, easy to handle, lethal at close range. Can't sleep? He asked. Not really. He sat beside her. You don't have to do this, you know. We can still call it off, disappear, start over somewhere they'll never find us. There's no such place. Elara set the gun down. And even if there was, I'm done running. Why? What changed? Magdalena died because of me. My mother died because she tried to protect me. I've spent my entire life being a victim, a pawn in other people's games. She looked at him. I'm done being powerless. Lucien's gaze was heavy. Power comes at a cost. I know. I'm willing to pay it. Are you willing to become what you hate? Because that's what happens when you go to war. You don't come back the same. Elara picked up the gun, checked the chamber, and set it back down. Maybe I don't want to come back the same. 10. The Borellis arrived on the 3rd day. 4 men in 2 speedboats, armed and overconfident. They docked at the small harbor just after dawn, moving up the hillside toward the villa with the kind of swagger that came from never having faced real resistance. Marco spotted them on the cameras. They're here, Lucien's voice was calm over the radio. Positions. No one fires until I give the word. Elara crouched behind a low stone wall on the eastern side of the villa, her heart hammering in her chest. She could see the men moving through the olive grove, their weapons glinting in the early light. She forced herself to breathe. In, out, steady. The first man reached the clearing. Lucien's voice crackled through the radio. Now! Gunfire erupted. The Borellis scattered, diving for cover. One of them went down immediately, blood blooming across his chest. The others returned fire, bullets chipping the stone walls, shattering windows. Elara ducked lower, her pulse roaring in her ears. Marco's voice. East side, 2 of them flanking. She peered over the wall, saw movement, raised her gun, aimed, pulled the trigger. The recoil slammed through her arms. The man stumbled, clutching his shoulder, and fell. She'd hit him. She'd actually hit him. Her stomach churned, but she didn't have time to process it. The second man was charging toward her position, firing wildly. She fired back, once, twice, 3 times. He dropped. Silence fell over the grove. Elara's hands were shaking again. She looked down at the gun, then at the bodies in the clearing. She'd killed 2 men. Elara! Lucien's voice, urgent. Status? She pressed the radio. I'm fine. Stay down. There's 1 more. She crouched lower, scanning the grove. Where was he? A shadow moved behind the villa. She turned, raising her gun. Too slow. The 4th Borelli brother appeared, his weapon aimed directly at her head. Drop it, he said. Elara's blood turned to ice. He stepped closer. I said drop it. She let the gun fall. Good girl. Now stand up. Slowly. She stood, her legs trembling. The man smiled. Lucien Moretti's little wife. You've caused a lot of trouble, you know that? I'm not his wife. Doesn't matter. You're worth just as much dead. He cocked his gun. Any last words? Yeah. Elara's voice was steady. Duck. His eyes widened. The shot came from behind him, Marco, positioned on the villa's roof. The bullet caught the man in the back of the skull. He dropped like a stone. Elara stumbled backward, her knees finally giving out. Marco descended from the roof, scanning the area. Clear! Lucien appeared from the western side, moving fast. He grabbed Elara, pulling her to her feet, his hands framing her face. Are you hurt? No, I'm fine. You froze. I know. Next time, don't. She nodded, her entire body shaking. Lucien pulled her against his chest, his arms tight around her. It's over. You're safe. But she wasn't. Not yet, because the Borellis had been the easy part. That night, they burned the bodies and sank the boats. No evidence. No trail. Elara sat on the terrace staring at her hands. They were clean now, she'd scrubbed them raw, but she could still feel the weight of the gun, the recoil, the moment the man fell. Lucien sat beside her, a glass of whiskey in his hand. Does it get easier? She asked. No. Good. He glanced at her. Good? I don't want it to get easier. I don't want to be the kind of person who can kill without feeling it. She looked at him. Are you? Yes. How? Practice, necessity, survival. He took a sip. But it costs, every time. You just learn to bury the cost deeper. I don't want to be like that. Then don't. Stay who you are. His voice softened. I'll carry the weight for both of us. Elara's throat tightened. That's not fair to you. Fair stopped mattering a long time ago. They sat in silence, the sound of the waves filling the space between them. Then Dante appeared in the doorway, his face grim. We have a problem. Lucien stood. What is it? Vieri. He's gone. Elara's blood ran cold. What do you mean, gone? He left the island 2 hours ago, took one of the emergency boats. Dante held up a phone. And he just made a call. To Senator Grimaldi. Lucien's expression went dark. He sold us out. Worse, he told them the Borellis are dead, told them exactly how many men we have, told them... Dante hesitated. What? He told them Elara's still here, and that she's planning to come after them next. Elara's stomach dropped. So they know we're vulnerable. They know you're dangerous, and they're not going to wait for you to come to them. Dante's voice was tight. They're coming here, all of them. Grimaldi, Calvino's nephew, every asset they have left. When? Tomorrow, maybe sooner. Lucien swore under his breath. How many? Best guess? 15, maybe 20. We have 5. I know. Elara stood, her mind racing. Then we level the playing field. Lucien turned to her. How? We call in a favor. From who? Salvier. Lucien's eyes widened. He's been off the grid for 20 years. But he owes me. I gave him the ledger. He said if I ever needed help. She looked at Dante. Can you reach him? Maybe, if he's still alive. Try. Dante left. Lucien grabbed Elara's arm. Even if Salvier helps, we're still outnumbered. This isn't like the Borellis. These men are professionals, soldiers. They won't make mistakes. Then we don't give them a chance to. Elara pulled away, pacing. We turn the island into a maze, force them to come to us on our terms, set traps, ambush points, make them bleed for every inch. That's suicide. That's war. She stopped, meeting his gaze. You said you wanted to protect me. This is how. We fight, together, and we win, or we die trying. Lucien stared at her, then he nodded. All right, let's make them regret ever coming after you. By midnight, the island was a death trap. Marco rigged explosive charges along the main path leading up from the harbor. Dante set up sniper positions on the villa's roof and in the olive grove. Lucien fortified the villa itself, barricading doors and windows, creating choke points. Elara worked alongside them, her hands steady now, her mind sharp. She wasn't afraid anymore. She was ready. At 2 a.m., Dante's phone buzzed. He answered, listened. His expression shifted from grim to something approaching relief. Salviere's coming. He's bringing 4 men. When? Lucien asked. Dawn. Elara closed her eyes. Will it be enough? It has to be. What? They came at sunrise. 3 boats. 22 men. Armed to the teeth. Elara watched from the villa's second floor, her gun in her hand, as they disembarked and moved up the hillside in tight formation. Professional, disciplined, deadly. Her pulse hammered. Lucien's voice crackled through the radio. "Wait for my signal." The first group hit the path. The explosion tore through the morning air, a massive blast that sent bodies flying. Screams, chaos. "Now!" Lucien shouted. Gunfire erupted from every angle. Marco from the roof, Dante from the grove, Lucien from the western wall. Elara aimed at the men scrambling for cover and fired. Again, again, again. One fell. Then another. But there were too many. They returned fire, coordinated and relentless. Bullets shredded the villa's walls, glass shattered, wood splintered. "Fall back!" Lucien's voice. "Inside, now!" Elara ran, ducking low as bullets whined past her head. She made it to the stairwell, heart slamming against her ribs. Marco appeared beside her, bleeding from a gash on his forehead. "East side's compromised. They're breaking through." "Where's Dante?" Pinned down in the grove. Lucien burst through the door, dragging an injured man, one of Salvier's. "They're pushing hard. We can't hold them." "Where's Salvier?" Elara demanded. "South side, fighting." Lucien reloaded his gun. "We need to regroup. The main hall. It's defensible." They moved fast, barricading themselves in the villa's central room. Outside, the gunfire was deafening. Then it stopped. Silence. Elara's breath came in short gasps. "What's happening?" Lucien peered through a crack in the barricade. "They're regrouping," a voice called out from outside, loud, confident. "Lucien Moretti, we know you're in there. Send out the girl and we'll let the rest of you walk away." Elara's stomach twisted. Lucien didn't answer. The voice continued. "You're outnumbered, outgunned. This doesn't end well for you, but it doesn't have to end in blood. Just give us Elara Vance and this is over." Elara looked at Lucien. "Don't. I'm not giving you up." "Lucien, I said no." His voice was steel. "We fight. Together." Marco spat blood. "They're stalling, waiting for us to make a mistake." "Then we don't make one." Lucien turned to Elara. "Can you shoot?" She nodded. "Good. Because we're about to make our last stand." The door exploded inward. Men poured through, firing. Elara raised her gun and pulled the trigger. The world became noise and blood and chaos. She fired until the magazine was empty, then reloaded with shaking hands and fired again. Beside her, Lucien moved like a machine, precise, lethal, unstoppable. Marco went down, clutching his leg. Dante appeared in the doorway, firing into the mass of attackers. And then, a figure stepped through the smoke. Senator Grimaldi. He aimed his gun directly at Elara. "End of the line," he said. Elara's gun was empty. She stared at him, breathing hard. "Any last words?" Grimaldi smiled. Elara's voice was steady. "Just one. Now." Grimaldi's smile faltered. The shot came from behind him, Salviere, blood-streaked and furious, his gun smoking. Grimaldi fell. Salviere stepped over the body, his eyes locking onto Elara's. "You're welcome." The remaining attackers broke, scattered, fled. Silence fell. Elara sank to her knees, her gun clattering to the floor. It was over. They'd won. But as she looked around at the carnage, the bodies, the blood, the shattered villa, she realized the cost. Marco was alive but wounded. Dante was pale, breathing hard. 2 of Salviere's men were dead. And she? She was covered in blood. Not all of it hers. Lucien knelt beside her, his hand on her shoulder. "It's over," he said softly. Elara looked at him, and for the first time since this nightmare began, she believed him. They spent the next hour securing the island. Salviere's men rounded up the survivors, 3 of them, wounded and broken. Salviere himself stood in the war room, studying the maps and photographs. "The network's finished," he said. "With Grimaldi dead and the Borellis gone, the rest will scatter. They'll try to rebuild, but they won't succeed. You've cut the head off the snake." Elara sat on the couch, her hands wrapped in bandages. "What about the others? Calvino's nephew, Castellano. Castellano's already in custody, turned himself in this morning. And Enzo Calvino. Salvieri smiled grimly. Let's just say he won't be a problem anymore. What does that mean? It means I took care of it. Elara didn't ask for details. Lucien entered, his shirt torn and blood-stained. The survivors are talking, giving us names, locations, everything. Good, Salvier turned to him. What will you do now? Lucien glanced at Elara. That depends on her. All eyes turned to Elara. She stood slowly, her body aching. I want to disappear. For real this time. No more running, no more fighting. Just gone. And him? Salvier gestured to Lucien. Elara looked at Lucien, really looked at him. The man who'd lied to her, broken her, saved her, fought beside her. That's up to him, she said quietly. Lucien crossed the room, stopping in front of her. I'll go wherever you go, do whatever you want, be whoever you need me to be. His voice was raw. Just don't ask me to let you go alone. Elara's throat tightened. Even after everything? Especially after everything. She reached up, her hand trembling, and touched his face. All right, she whispered. Together. He pulled her into his arms, holding her like she might disappear. And for the first time in months, Elara felt safe. 3 days later, they left the island. Salvier arranged new identities, new passports, new lives. Elara Vance and Lucien Moretti ceased to exist. In their place, two strangers, bound by blood and fire, heading toward a future neither of them could predict. As the boat pulled away from the island, Elara looked back one last time. At the villa, the graves, the ghosts. Then she turned forward, toward the horizon, toward whatever came next. Lucien stood beside her, his hand in hers. Ready? He asked. No, she said honestly. Me neither. They sailed into the sunrise, two broken people, one chance at redemption, and a world that would never know what they'd done, or who they used to be. The boat cut through dark water, heading south toward a coastline Elara had never seen. The Mediterranean stretched endlessly around them, ink black under a moonless sky. She sat at the bow, wrapped in a borrowed jacket that smelled like diesel and salt, watching the island fade into the distance. Behind her, Lucien spoke quietly with Salvier near the helm. Their voices were low, indistinct over the engine's rumble. Planning, always planning. Elara closed her eyes and let the wind rake through her hair. 3 days ago, she'd killed a man. Maybe more than one. She'd lost count in the chaos. Her hands had stopped shaking, but she could still feel the gun's weight, the recoil traveling up her arms with each shot. She'd crossed a line she could never uncross. And the strangest part was how little she felt about it. Not guilt, not horror, just a hollow kind of acceptance. This was who she was now. Footsteps approached. She didn't open her eyes. You should rest, Lucien said, sitting beside her. We have another 6 hours before we reach Sardinia. I'm not tired. You're exhausted. I can see it. She opened her eyes, turning to look at him. He looked worse than she did, cuts and bruises mottling his face, one eye swollen half shut, his shirt stiff with dried blood. But his gaze was steady. What happens when we get to Sardinia? She asked. Salvier has a contact, someone who owes him. They'll get us to South America, Argentina like we planned. New documents, new names, new everything. And then what? We just disappear? Pretend none of this happened? That's the idea. Elara looked back at the water. I don't know if I can do that. You don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Lucien was quiet for a moment. Then he said, What do you want, Elara? Really? She thought about it. For the first time in months, she actually let herself think about it. I want to feel clean again. I want to sleep without dreaming about blood. I want... Her voice cracked. I want to be someone I don't hate when I look in the mirror. You're not a monster, aren't I? I orchestrated a massacre. I pulled the trigger. I watched men die because of choices I made. They were coming to kill you. Does that make it right? It makes it survival. Elara shook her head. My mother died trying to do the right thing. Magdalena died protecting me. And what did I do? I became exactly what my father was. A killer. A manipulator. Someone who uses people and throws them away when they're no longer useful. That's not true, isn't it? I used the ledger. I used Interpol. I used you. I let you use me. There's a difference. Lucien leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You want to know the truth? The real truth? Always. I'm glad you did it. All of it. Because for the first time since I met you, you're not a victim. You're not someone's daughter or someone's wife or someone's pawn. You're just you, dangerous and broken and completely free. Elara's throat tightened. I don't feel free. You will. Eventually. He reached over, his hand finding hers in the darkness. And I'll be there when you do. She didn't pull away. They sat like that for a long time, the boat carrying them toward an uncertain future, the past burning in their wake. Sardinia was a blur of safe houses and back alley meetings. Salviere's contact was a woman in her 50s named Carla, sharp-eyed and efficient, who asked no questions and offered no sympathy. She handed them forged passports, airline tickets, and a thick envelope of cash. Your flight leaves in 6 hours, she said, sitting across from them in a cramped apartment that smelled like coffee and cigarettes. Buenos Aires. You'll land under the names Marco and Alessia Bernardi, Italian expats, married 3 years, no children. Elara stared at the passport. The photograph was hers, taken during the boat ride, her face gaunt and shadowed, but the name was a stranger's. What about our histories? Lucien asked. If someone digs, they won't find anything. I've been doing this for 20 years. Your trail ends the moment you step on that plane. Carla slid a second envelope across the table. Addresses, bank accounts, everything you need to start over. Memorize it. Burn the papers. Elara opened the envelope. Inside were details of a life that didn't exist. An apartment in Palermo. A modest savings account. Employment records at a small import-export business. Fiction. Carefully constructed. Airtight. Thank you, she said quietly. Carla's expression didn't soften. Don't thank me. Just don't come back. The airport was chaos. Families with screaming children, businessmen barking into phones, tourists hauling oversized luggage. Elara moved through it like a ghost, her new passport clutched in her hand, every instinct screaming that someone would recognize her. But no one did. She was just another face in the crowd. Forgettable. Invisible. They boarded the plane separately, sitting 2 rows apart as instructed. Elara took a window seat and stared out at the tarmac, watching baggage handlers load cargo into the belly of the aircraft. The woman beside her, a grandmother type with kind eyes and a floral scarf, smiled. First time flying? Elara forced a smile back. Something like that? It's not so bad once you're in the air. The takeoff is the hardest part. I'll keep that in mind. The plane's engines roared to life. Elara gripped the armrest, her knuckles white. The grandmother patted her hand. Just breathe, dear. It'll be over before you know it. Elara closed her eyes and breathed. The plane lifted off, and for the first time in her life, Elara Vance ceased to exist. Buenos Aires was a city of contradictions. Grand European architecture crumbling beside modern glass towers, streets choked with traffic and alive with music, the smell of grilled meat and exhaust thick in the air. Elara and Lucien arrived in the middle of summer, the heat oppressive and unrelenting. Their apartment was in San Telmo, a neighborhood of cobblestone streets and tango halls. Small. 2 rooms, peeling paint and creaky floors. But it was theirs. For the first week, they barely spoke. Elara spent her days wandering the city, learning the rhythms of her new life. Lucien stayed inside, making calls to contacts Salviere had arranged, ensuring their safety net held. On the 8th day, Elara came home to find him sitting at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. What's wrong? She asked. He looked up. I got word from Salviere. The network's completely collapsed. Every major player is either dead, arrested, or in hiding. It's over. Elara set down her bag. That's good news, isn't it? It should be. But I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for someone to find us, for this to fall apart. He rubbed his face. I don't know how to live without looking over my shoulder. Elara pulled out a chair and sat across from him. Then we learn, together. How? One day at a time. One choice at a time. She reached across the table, her hand covering his. We're not those people anymore. Lucien Moretti is dead. Elara Vance is dead. We're Marco and Alessia now. And maybe, just maybe, we can be better than who we were. Lucian's eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted. Do you really believe that? I have to, because if I don't, then everything we did, everyone who died, it was all for nothing. He turned his hand over, lacing his fingers through hers. All right, he whispered, one day at a time. Months passed. Elara found work at a small bookstore in the neighborhood, shelving inventory and helping customers in broken Spanish that slowly, painfully improved. The owner, an elderly man named Raul, never asked about her past, just handed her a broom and told her to make herself useful. Lucian took a job at a shipping company, managing logistics. It was beneath him, far beneath the empire he'd once commanded, but he didn't complain. He came home tired, his hands stained with ink, and sat with Elara at their tiny kitchen table, eating whatever she'd managed to cook. They learned the language together, stumbled through conversations with neighbors, attended local festivals, and pretended to belong. And slowly, so slowly Elara almost didn't notice, the nightmares began to fade, not disappear. Never that. But they became less frequent, less vivid. She stopped waking up screaming, started sleeping through the night. One evening, 6 months after they'd arrived, Elara came home to find Lucien on the apartment's small balcony, looking out over the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. You're home early, she said, stepping outside. Raul gave you the afternoon off? Said I looked tired, told me to go rest. She leaned against the railing beside him. What are you thinking about? The island, the villa, everything we left behind. Do you miss it? He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, No, I miss who I thought I was. The control, the power, the certainty. But the life itself. He shook his head. That was a prison. I just didn't realize it until you broke me out. Elara looked at him. I didn't break you out. You chose to leave. Because of you. Because of us. He turned to face her, his expression serious. Do you regret it? Any of it? Which part? Marrying you, running away, starting a war? All of it. Elara considered the question, really considered it. I regret the people who died. Magdalena, my mother. The men on the island. I regret the pain, the fear, the person I had to become. She paused. But I don't regret surviving. And I don't regret this. This? Us. Here. Now. She gestured to the city sprawling below them. It's not perfect. It's not what I imagined my life would be. But it's real. And it's ours. And that's enough. Lucian's hand found hers. I love you, he said. I should have said it sooner, every day, instead of once when it was almost too late. You're saying it now. I love you, Alessia. She smiled. It was small, fragile, but real. I love you too, Marco. He kissed her, soft and careful, like he was afraid she might break. She kissed him back, harder, desperate, alive. When they pulled apart, the sun had set and the city lights were blinking to life like stars. Come on, Elara said, pulling him back inside. I'll make dinner. You can't cook. I'm learning. That's what you said last week. I almost died. She laughed, actually laughed. Then you make dinner. Deal. They moved through the tiny apartment, bumping into each other in the narrow kitchen, arguing over spices and heat levels, and for the first time in as long as either of them could remember. They were happy. Not healed, not whole, but happy. And that was something. Welcome. A year later, Elara stood in the bookstore, arranging a display of new arrivals. Raul was at the counter, arguing good-naturedly with a customer about the merits of Garcia Marquez versus Borges. The door chimed. A woman entered, mid-30s, dark hair, expensive suit. She browsed the shelves for a few minutes, then approached Elara. Excuse me, do you have anything on European history, specifically Italy? Elara's stomach tightened. The woman's accent was Italian, northern. Third aisle, middle shelf, she said in Spanish, keeping her voice steady. The woman smiled. Gracias. She walked away. Elara watched her, pulse hammering. Was this it? Had someone found her? The woman selected a book, paid, and left. No recognition, No double take. Nothing. Elara exhaled slowly. Just a customer. Just a woman buying a book. Raoul appeared beside her. You all right? Yeah, I'm fine. You look like you've seen a ghost. Maybe I have. She forced a smile. I'm taking my break. She stepped outside into the warm afternoon air, leaning against the storefront stone wall. Her hands were shaking again. She pressed them flat against the rough surface, willing them to stop. A little girl ran past, chasing a ball. Her mother called after her in rapid Spanish, laughing. Elara watched them disappear around the corner. Someday, she thought, maybe someday she could have that. A normal life, a family, something uncomplicated. But not yet. She went back inside Trompuem. 2 years after they'd arrived in Buenos Aires, Elara woke to find Lucien already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with a newspaper spread in front of him. What's wrong? She asked, patting over in bare feet. He looked up. His face was pale. You need to see this. She took the paper. It was an international edition printed in English. The headline made her blood run cold. Former Interpol agent arrested for corruption. The article detailed Agent Claire Duval's arrest in Geneva. Charges of bribery, obstruction of justice, conspiracy. The investigation had uncovered a network of corrupt officials who'd been selling information to criminal organizations for years. Elara's hands shook as she read. She finally got caught, Lucien said quietly. Good. There's more. He pointed to a paragraph near the end. They're reopening cases she worked on, including the one involving the ledger, looking for witnesses who might have been coerced or paid off. Elara's heart stopped. They're looking for me. They're looking for Elara Vance, who doesn't exist anymore. But if they dig deep enough, they won't. Salvieri made sure of that. Our trail is cold, dead. They'll never connect Alessia Bernardi to Elara Vance. Elara set the paper down. How can you be sure? Because we've been here 2 years and no one's come knocking. If they were going to find us, they would have by now. He stood, moving around the table to stand in front of her. We're safe. I promise. She wanted to believe him, but a small part of her, the part that had learned to never trust promises, remained skeptical. In case. 6 months later, Elara found out she was pregnant. She stood in the tiny bathroom of their apartment, staring at the test, unable to process what she was seeing. Pregnant. She was going to have a child. The thought terrified her. What kind of mother could she be? She'd killed people, destroyed lives. She was a fugitive living under a false name in a foreign country. How could she bring a child into this? But beneath the terror was something else. Hope. Fragile and tentative, but real. She walked into the living room where Lucien sat reading. He looked up when he heard her footsteps. What's wrong? She held up the test. His eyes widened. Are you? Yes. He stood slowly, crossing the room. His hands hovered near her face, uncertain. How do you feel? Terrified. Me too. You? I'm going to be a father. I have no idea how to do that. He laughed, shaky and disbelieving. I barely know how to be a person. We'll figure it out together. Will we? We have to. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. A baby, he whispered against her hair. Our baby. Elara closed her eyes, letting herself lean into him. Yeah, she said softly. Ours. The pregnancy was difficult. Elara's body rebelled, morning sickness that lasted all day, exhaustion that left her barely able to stand, anxiety that kept her awake at night. But she endured. Lucien was there every step of the way, holding her hair when she was sick, rubbing her feet when they swelled, reading parenting books in broken Spanish and looking increasingly panicked. It says here we're supposed to have a birth plan, he said one evening, looking up from the book. What's a birth plan? I have no idea. Should we have one? Probably. Great. That's helpful. Elara laughed despite herself. We'll ask the doctor. The doctor barely speaks English. Then we'll mime it. This is insane. Welcome to parenthood. He set the book down, his expression softening. Are we really doing this? I think it's a little late to back out now. I don't mean the baby. I mean all of it. Building a life here, pretending to be normal people, raising a child. Elara reached over, taking his hand. Yes, we're really doing this, because the alternative is living in fear forever, and I'm tired of being afraid. What if I'm not good at it? What if I mess it up? Then you mess it up, and we figure it out, and we try again. She squeezed his hand. That's what parents do. How do you know? I don't, but I'm willing to try if you are. Lucian looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right, let's try it. Their daughter was born on a rainy October morning. Elara labored for 16 hours, gripping Lucian's hand hard enough to bruise, cursing in 3 languages. The pain was blinding, relentless, all-consuming. And then, a cry. Small and indignant and perfect. The nurse placed the baby on Elara's chest, and the world stopped. She was tiny, red-faced and wrinkled, with a shock of dark hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. She's beautiful, Lucian breathed, his voice cracking. Elara couldn't speak. She just stared at her daughter, this impossible, miraculous thing they'd created. What do we name her? Lucian asked. Elara thought about her mother, about Magdalena, about all the women who'd loved her and died protecting her. Sophia, she said. Her name is Sophia. Lucian smiled. Sophia Bernardi. Yeah. He leaned down, kissing Elara's forehead. You did it. We did it. No, you're incredible. Elara looked down at Sophia, who'd stopped crying and was now staring up at her with unfocused eyes. And for the first time since the night she'd walked out of Lucian's mansion with a ledger and a heart full of rage, Elara felt at peace. Walk. The years passed quietly. Sophia grew, learned to walk, to talk, to laugh. She had Elara's eyes and Lucian's stubbornness, and she was fearless in a way that both terrified and amazed her parents. Elara continued working at the bookstore. Lucien was promoted at the shipping company. They moved to a slightly larger apartment with a balcony where Sophia could play. They made friends with their neighbors, attended school events, lived ordinary lives. And slowly, the past became something distant, a story that had happened to other people. On Sophia's 5th birthday, Elara stood in their small kitchen, frosting a lopsided cake, while Lucien hung streamers in the living room, and Sophia ran circles around him, shrieking with excitement. Mama, is it time for cake? Almost, mi amor. Go help Papa with the decorations. Sophia darted off. Elara set down the frosting knife and looked around the apartment. At the photos on the walls, Sophia's first steps, her first day of school, family trips to the beach. At the life they'd built from nothing. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. And it was real. Lucien appeared in the doorway, Sophia perched on his shoulders. Cake ready? Almost. She's getting impatient. She gets that from you. I get that from you, Sophia said seriously. Elara laughed. Probably true. They gathered around the table, 3 people who shouldn't exist, living a life that shouldn't be possible. Lucien lit the candles. Sophia bounced in her seat. Make a wish, Elara said softly. Sophia squeezed her eyes shut, her face scrunched in concentration. Then she blew out the candles in one breath. What did you wish for? Lucien asked. Can't tell. It won't come true. Smart girl. They ate cake, too sweet and slightly burnt, but Sophia declared it the best cake in the world. They opened presents, played games until Sophia's eyelids drooped. Lucien carried her to bed, tucking her in while Elara stood in the doorway, watching. Te amo, papa, Sophia mumbled, already half asleep. Te amo, princesa. He kissed her forehead and stood. Elara took his hand as they walked back to the living room. Do you ever think about it? She asked. Everything that happened? Every day. Do you regret it? Which part? Any of it. Lucien pulled her close. I regret the people who died. I regret the pain we caused. I regret that we'll never be able to tell Sophia the truth about who we really are. He paused. But I don't regret you, or this, or her. Not for a second. Elara rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Me neither. They stood like that for a long time, the apartment quiet around them, the city humming beyond the windows. 2 people who'd burned the world down and risen from the ashes. 2 people who'd learned that redemption wasn't about erasing the past. It was about building something better in spite of it. Walk. 3 years later, Elara received a letter. It arrived in a plain envelope, no return address, delivered to the bookstore instead of their apartment. Raoul handed it to her with a curious look. "This came for you." Elara's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a single photograph and a note written in handwriting she recognized. Salvier. The photograph showed a grave marker. Simple, elegant. The name carved into the stone made Elara's breath catch. Agent Claire Duval. The note was brief. "Justice takes many forms. She won't hurt anyone else. Live well." Elara stared at the photograph for a long time. Then she folded it carefully and tucked it into her pocket. Duval was dead. The last thread connecting her to Elara Vance severed. She should feel something, relief, maybe, or satisfaction. But all she felt was tired. That night, she told Lucien about the letter. He read it in silence, then set it down. "It's over, truly over." "Is it?" "Yes." "How can you be sure?" "Because we're still here, still alive, still free." He took her hand. "The rest is just noise." Elara wanted to believe him, and maybe, finally, she did. On Sophia's 8th birthday, the family took a trip to the coast. They spent the day on the beach, building sand castles, collecting shells splashing in the surf. Sophia ran ahead, her laughter carried on the wind. Elara watched her, this bright, fearless child who knew nothing of ledgers or empires or the blood that had paved the way for her existence. And she was grateful, not for the violence, not for the lies, but for the second chance, for the life they'd clawed out of the ruins. Lucien appeared beside her, dripping wet from the ocean. "She wants you to come swim." "I'm coming." "You're thinking." "Always." "About what?" Elara looked at him, this man who'd broken her and saved her and loved her through it all. "About how far we've come." "And?" "And I think we're going to be okay." He smiled. "Yeah, I think so too." They walked down to the water together. Sophia ran to meet them, grabbing their hands and pulling them into the waves. The three of them stood there, waist deep in the ocean, the sun warm on their faces, the horizon endless before them. Elara Vance was gone. Lucien Moretti was gone. In their place were two people who'd learned that survival wasn't enough. You had to live, really live. And for the first time in her life, Elara did. Brochette. Years later, when Sophia was grown and building a life of her own, she asked her parents about their past. "Where did you come from, before Argentina?" Elara and Lucien exchanged a glance. "Italy," Elara said carefully. "A long time ago." "Why did you leave?" "We needed a fresh start." "From what?" Lucien leaned back in his chair. "From people we used to be. People who made mistakes." "What kind of mistakes?" "The kind you can't take back, but you can learn from." Sophia studied them both. She was 23 now, sharp and curious, her mother's eyes and her father's stubbornness written across her face. "Are you happy now?" she asked. Elara reached over, taking Lucien's hand. "Yes," she said softly. "We are." Sophia nodded. "Good. That's all that matters." She stood, kissing them both on the cheek, and left. Elara and Lucien sat alone in the quiet apartment. "She knows," Lucien said. "On some level, she knows we're hiding something." "Probably. Does that bother you?" "No, because whatever she imagines, it can't be worse than the truth." Elara turned to him. "And someday, maybe, we'll tell her everything, but not yet. Not while it's still too raw." "And when will it stop being raw?" "Maybe never. Maybe that's the price we pay." Lucien was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I'd pay it again, 1,000 times over, if it meant ending up here with you." Elara smiled. "Me too." They sat together, the apartment filled with the ghosts of who they'd been and the quiet certainty of who they'd become. Outside, the city hummed with life, Buenos Aires, their home, their sanctuary, the place where Elara Vance and Lucien Moretti had died so that Marco and Alessia Bernardi could live. And in the end, that was enough. Not forgiveness, not redemption, but a life. Hard-won, imperfect, and entirely their own. The world had burned. And from the ashes, they'd built something worth saving. Something worth fighting for. Each other. Their daughter. Their future. And as the sun set over the city one more time, painting the sky in shades of fire and gold, Elara closed her eyes and let herself believe. In second chances, in new beginnings, in the possibility that even the most broken people could find their way home, not to the place they'd left behind, but to the place they'd built together, one choice at a time, one day at a time, one breath at a time, until the past became a story, and the future became everything.